the fact that I'm here is already a very positive sign that the government is rethinking its approach. Many of the political prisoners that Amnesty International has campaigned for decades are now free. Of course, Daw Aun is one of the most well-known of them, but there are many, many others who have been released, so we have to first appreciate that. But one of the things I think people don't know, particularly outside Myanmar, is that this country is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources and cultural diversity. 40% of the population are ethnic minorities, 10% or so religious minorities. And here there's very big challenges. We have a lot of conflict, a lot of human rights violations against ethnic minorities and religious minorities, which Amnesty has documented over decades. I would really like to know as to, if we're talking about rule of law, we're talking about accountability for ongoing violations and past violations, how do we make sure that there is an end to impunity in this country? How do we actually make sure that the rule of law we're talking about is seen in practice? The Rohingya Muslims being attacked was the most visible recent issue, but this is not restricted only to that group. Many ethnic minorities are facing challenges as we speak.
Let me add that we've had a lot of tweets and Facebook on this. Here's one from Billy Mayaya, a human rights activist from Malawi, who says right now the government of Myanmar is releasing syrupy rhetoric, but is it ready to account for the atrocities of the past? Jinma, do you want revenge? Do you want accountability for those who've done whatever they've done here in recent years?
As a political prisoner, I personally, I do not have any sense of revenge. But the thing is, justice is really important. What we would like to show for the next generation, what was really happening in the past is our history. So that is, what I would like to highlight and promote for our next generation.
Where could this therefore go? After all, in South Africa, they've had a truth and verification. I'll say it again. Where could this now go? In South Africa, they've had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Is that something, Aung San Suu Kyi, you believe should be happening here?
I don't think of it in terms of a commission, but I think that there are very strong links between truth and reconciliation. I do not think that accountability is the reverse side of revenge. No, it does not mean that because you want people to be accountable, you want to take revenge on them. But I think there has to be an acknowledgement of our past. Unless we are able to face our past freely, we will not be able to proceed freely towards the future. But I, for one, am entirely against the whole concept of revenge. But accountability is related to courage. And I like courage. I admire courage in individuals as well as in organizations and in nations. And I would like us to have the courage to be able to face our past squarely, that the same mistakes may not be repeated in the future, but making it quite clear that I personally am not for trying anybody or punishing them or seeking revenge or taking the kind of action that will destroy people for what they had done in the past. Because I believe in accountability, but also I believe in people's right to redeem themselves.
Hussein, it's important to underline you were nodding agreement there about looking and examining the past.
So you have to think about the right blend for the understanding of the past and appreciation of the evolving or present dynamic. That should be sometimes you have to think about that. What you have said is absolutely correct, but we need time. We are in the dark age or the other system about 60 years, not 60 months, not 6 years. 60 years is 60. It's, too long. Now 2 years. We have idea to arrange for everything we have to change, but we need time because we need time for tighten the rope about 60 years. So you have to untie the rope. It is sometimes very difficult for me, but we must do. We must think about the democracy. We must think about the economic development for the 60 million people. That is some main things.
We will come on to that later in this debate. But let me pick up what Amnesty International was talking about, particularly about the minorities, because Burma's new name is the Union of Myanmar. and a major ongoing threat to the stability and future economic prospects of this nation comes from various armed rebel groups and ethnic minorities challenging that union. A key challenge is from 800,000 Rohingya Muslims who are stateless. The UN labels them one of the most persecuted minorities in the world. Well, Abul Tahey is chair of the Union National Development Party, a largely ethnic Rohingya party. We asked that he come to this debate, but he couldn't get access. So I went to his office in Yangon, where he recorded this question for this debate.
So we're delighted that we've been able to come here.
Rohingya as well as Muslim communities have been denied full-fledged citizenship since 1982 citizenship law comes into operations, which contravenes Universal Declarations of Human Rights, Article 7 of UN Conventions on Rights of Child, and also all international norms, but also contradicts 2008 constitutions. Also one citizen throughout the country, which was built by our national hero, General Daw Aun. So my question is, shouldn't it change by leaders with retrospective effect? And isn't it an obligation of leaders to protect minorities from the influence of majorities, to promote rights and integrations? Thank you.
Minister, the obligation of governments to protect minorities, like the Rohingya.
So we have to protect the human, what you call the people's security. Nowadays, before that we are thinking about national security, including that we give more focus and more share to the trend is changed to people's security. That is, what I mean is the community security, human rights security, then political security, personal security, health security, environmental security, economic security, food security, such like that. In future, we have to protect those who stay in our territory. That's our duty.
But human rights monitors are claiming that the army is condoning and even participating against the nation's Muslim minority.
No, that is a very complicated thing. We have to discuss it all, just like the commission and something like that.
Well, let's get a reflection on this, if we can go to Chant Mint Oo, who's a historian, about how important this ethnic minority issue is for the future of Myanmar.
It's critical. I mean, in one way, this has been an issue that's been with the country since independence or even before independence. Myanmar was a multi-ethnic, multicultural country before British times. In British times, the colonial power ruled different parts of the country differently. There were lots of immigrants who had come from India over the 50, 100 years of colonial rule. And so this question of what is it to be Burmese or to be Myanmar has been a central question throughout our politics since 1948. The Civil War, the armed conflicts began in 1948-49, partly on issues of identity, partly on issues of nationalism. We are now at the end of, we hope, of 70 years of armed conflict in this country, and I think everyone accepts that there is no way forward, there's no way towards democracy, there's no way towards economic development until the armed conflicts are resolved, but around that is a much broader issue of what does it mean to be Myanmar? How can we forge a more inclusive national identity? It's not just about the Myanmar Burmese majority and different ethnic minorities. We have millions of Myanmar people in Thailand. Are the children born there Myanmar or not? We have immigrants, Chinese immigrants, for instance, from China who've come in over the last 10 years. Are there children who are born here Myanmar or not? I mean, there's a much broader issue of inclusiveness and identity that's central, I think, to the politics of this country.
Thank you. Could I just pause for a service message? Can I just tell my colleagues in the gallery that I'm not hearing you? My earpiece has gone down. So if you think you're talking to me, you're not. I can pause, but I will continue, but just so you're aware of that at the moment. Let me move on with the next bit then, because Well, Abu Tahir has met President Obama and British Prime Minister in Rangoon, David Cameron that is, but not yet Aung San Suu Kyi. So he had this question for you, mentioning that you're the daughter of General Aung San, the country's independence hero.
Key points to highlight. The first one is Rohingya issues were resolved by our national hero, General Aung San. Daw Aun is daughter of General Aung San. Second point, Daw Aun is internationally recognized democratic icon, and Daw Aun also Nobel Peace Laureate. That is why Daw Aun has obligation to come up the concrete common grounds to resolve the Rohingya issues for the sake of nations and people of this country.
Aung San Suu Kyi, real expectation on you particularly to resolve this issue of citizenship for a minority like the Rohingyas?
Well, at the moment, nobody seems to be very satisfied with me because I'm not taking sides. But let's look at it this way. I believe in rule of law. I think that the first necessity is rule of law. In the Rakhine, until people feel safe, until people can be sure that they will not be killed in bed or their houses burned above them, they're not going to talk to each other, and there is not going to be any kind of genuine reconciliation. So because I believe in rule of law, first of all, I believe that everybody must be entitled to security under the present administration, and that the administration must do everything possible to ensure the security of all peoples in our country, whatever their race, whatever their religion. And secondly, when I say rule of law, it also means the law with regard to citizenship. And that I look at it in two steps. First of all, are all those who are entitled to citizenship under the 1982 law now citizens? Have they been given citizenship in accordance with the 1982 law? That is the first thing we have to look at. And then secondly, we must reassess the 1982 law to see if it is in line with international norms. That is what rule of law means, and it's not an exciting answer that I'm giving you. And people don't like it because they prefer the sort of things that they can flash in the headlines.
Well, pragmatism is clearly a way ahead, but what is fascinating is the number of people who've contacted us in advance, like Yusra Bentrif from Maknes in Morocco. How can a Peace Nobel Prize winner stand silent when an ethnic cleansing is going on in your own country? Patrick Pitts, based in the UK. Why is Aung San Suu Kyi silent about the massacre?
I have not been silent.
I'm merely asking the questions which others are putting. Massacre of Rohingya Muslims in Burma, these are the perceptions. And there's one from Facebook as well, Noor Ryan Arabisha from Singapore. Such violence shows a clear indication of the government's negative approach in dealing with ethnic and religious tensions. How can you contribute as a flag bearer for pro-democracy movement and a Nobel Peace Prize recipient? That's what we've been hearing from around the world. People who are now very aware of what is happening with the ethnic minorities in your country.
Well, first of all, as I said, I have not been silent. It's just that they're not hearing what they want to hear from me. But I cannot doctor my answers to please everybody. I have to say what I believe in. And I believe that rule of law is the first step towards any kind of solution to the problem in the Rakhine State and other parts of this country. And of course, that's not an exciting answer. So people would rather think that I was not saying anything than that I was saying something so boring that they'd rather not hear. But it is a practical need. And as I said, then we must get to the point of reassessing the law to see if it comes up to international norms or not. And I would like people all over the world to understand that we are aware of the difficulties in our country, and we are doing our best to cope with it. When I say we, I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about ordinary people in Burma, because Burma is made up of different races and different religions. And I really must take up this question of Burma, Myanmar, which you mentioned just now. It reminds me very much of a line by, I think, Paul